Hey, I'm Lindsay Lyman. I worked almost 12 years at Amazon and saw so many brilliant and successful overachievers burn themselves out and leave their jobs because they're so stressed and anxious. But guess what? Having a successful career does not have to be at the expense of your mental sanity and personal time. There's an easier way, and I can show you how. Let's do this. Hey y'all, it's busy season for a lot of you out there. How you holding up? How you doing? I hope you're taking just 5 minutes for yourself each day to just take a minute, breathe, remind yourself that you're pretty amazing, because you are. I also wanted to let you know I am hosting a free workshop October 25th. It's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time for an hour, where I'm going to teach you what to do if you're working with a manager that you don't trust. And spoiler alert, I don't think you should trust all your managers. There's a lot of them out there that you have good reason not to trust them. Let's not trust them. But what I want to teach you is what to do if you find yourself in this situation and you need your job, but you're just really struggling because you don't trust your manager. And as we know, your manager can really make or break your success and your opportunities and your enjoyment at work. So this is a big problem if you can't trust your manager. I want to teach you some things what to do. Totally free. Go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/trustmanager or click the link in the show notes and grab your spot. There's limited spots available, and I do expect this workshop to fill up. So go grab a spot. Again, it's going to be October 25th at 9 to 10. And let's get you some help if you're struggling with this. Today, we're going to talk about how do you showcase your work? How do you talk about the good things you're doing? How do you help leaders and managers understand all of the positive work you're doing and the impact you're having without sounding like an arrogant turd? Okay. You've probably worked with that one person who was very good at highlighting what they did, and leaders love them, executives love them. And as coworkers, we can't stand these people. There's one in particular I can think of that this person worked so hard because they wanted nothing more than to be the top performer. Like that is what they were basing their identity and their value as a human in. Totally fine. That's just not me. This person I'm thinking of, and you probably know someone as well, they're a good person. They're very successful in their career to this day. And truth be told, they really haven't done anything for me not to like them. There's just something about the way they go about showcasing their work that rubs me wrong. It comes across as boastful and prideful and all about them. And truth be told, I didn't 100% trust this person because it was very clear their goal was to be the top performer and to do that at any expense necessary and make sure leaders knew it was all about them. So I also know from all the things I talk about on this podcast, this is a me problem, right? There's nothing wrong with this person. Again, they're very successful. They are a good person. It's a me problem, not them. And the problem this created for me when I was working in a corporate setting is it totally shut me down from even trying to showcase and highlight some of the good things I was doing and that I was doing really well, because I really did not want to be like this person. Like it was such a turnoff to me that I went the complete opposite and just never talked about any of the good things I was doing that my leaders weren't necessarily aware of. Again, this was a problem because I'm pretty sure I missed out on some opportunities or some promotions or some cool projects I could have led because I wasn't out there kind of putting my name in the hat the way these other people were. So if you find yourself struggling to know, how do I highlight the good things I'm doing and not feel prideful and arrogant and still like myself, I want to give you a couple things to try and ways to think about it. Okay. My first caveat is a little bit of a warning when you're going to do this. And I always think of this in terms of you don't want to put yourself in jail. You don't want to overshare, especially with more senior leaders. So skip levels, executives, VPs, those types of people. You want to showcase your work, but you don't want to overshare because sometimes that leader might start poking and prodding and digging into things we don't want them to. I'll give you an example of this. When I was working at Amazon, one of the big projects I was working on towards the end was like this company-wide project building a tool that would be used across all of Amazon for internal comms. Okay, so I was talking to one of our VPs about this, and we were in the part where it was really messy, and we're trying to align teams, and we didn't really have good solutions, and some of the teams weren't aligned on how we were going to move forward. But I didn't need nor want this VP jumping into the mess. They were just going to create more churn and spin it up and make people annoyed and frustrated if they felt like I went to the VP to complain, which was not what I was doing. So as I was talking about this, I wanted to make sure, again, I'm not trying to lie and be deceitful, but I don't want to overshare. I don't want to put myself in jail and have them start jumping into things they don't need to be worried about. Okay. So as you're doing this, it kind of is an art form. You're going to have to go and practice and you're going to fail at it. That's okay. You got to get through the failures to get better at it. But I'm always just thinking like, don't put myself in jail. If this person starts poking and prodding in this thing I'm telling them about, is that going to cause more problems? If so, I'm maybe not ready to talk about it yet. Okay. It's just a really healthy lens to think through. Is this going to put me in jail? Okay. So now that we're staying out of jail, I like to think of this kind of as like a PR campaign. Now stick with me here because I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth, if I'm being honest, when I think of like a PR campaign. I'm like, oh, you're like spinning it. You're selling it to me. Okay. But I'm like, no, I just like to think of it from a PR campaign as very purposeful and strategic. And what's the main narrative, the main message, the main thing you want to go out and talk about it? Okay. Now we want to keep this true. We're not here to lie. I don't want to be that slimy person that's spinning things and selling things and kind of telling partial truths. That's going to make me feel like the arrogant jerk that I don't respect. Okay. But I do want to be strategic in what I'm saying and have a clear narrative. So the narrative I might want to be talking about to showcase my work is I'm the one that gets things done. Right? I can find creative solutions. I can bring people together. I don't need my hand held. I don't need approval from my executive, but I know when to pull my executives in. I'm the one that gets it done. I'm the doer. Or maybe the narrative you're wanting to have a quote unquote PR campaign around is like you bring teams together and you align people to work effectively. Or maybe the narrative is you find creative solutions. Or maybe the narrative is you aren't afraid to fail because you are so driven to figure it out and hit the goal. People that work in PR are brilliant. They're very strategic and purposeful in what they do and what they say and the story they're crafting and the narrative they're giving. We want the same thing as you're showcasing your work to be strategic about it, okay? Here's the other thing to keep in mind. Good PR campaigns, good PR firms, good PR people out there, they're not waiting until everything's perfect. It's a hot mess behind the curtains. Okay? They don't wait till it's all figured out and it's working and it's chugging and it's plugging along perfectly. No, they know how to pivot along the way if needs be, but they are purposeful. They believe in the story they're telling. And they go out and tell that story and they don't apologize it. And they also don't say, here, let me show you everything that's going on behind the curtains. I think of it in college. I was responsible for all of our on-campus activities one year. And oh man, so many stories I could tell there. But we would put on this Halloween party. It would sell out. It was something like 8,000 to 10,000 people. I don't remember, but it was basically the capacity of the building we were having it in on this college campus. And we would sell it every year. And it was so much fun and people loved it. We had a great time. But like behind the scenes, it was just crazy what we were doing, what we were trying to coordinate, the people we were trying to get in and out, the safety we were trying to create. Like it's a hot mess. But to the people at the party, they're just having fun and they're loving it, right? At this PR campaign, you want to be purposeful and strategic, but we don't need to wait until it's all perfect. And we also don't need to highlight the mess that's happening. Again, we're trying to be truthful. We're not lying about it, but we don't need to put ourselves in jail and be like, yeah, but this thing over here is terrible and we haven't figured it out. So it's not really that great. Okay. But you want to have one single narrative so that keeps you top of mind when that thing comes up in leader conversations, in opportunities to lead new projects, in places where they need people to fill gaps. You want to make sure that you have a very clear narrative so that you're top of mind when it's appropriate. Here's the other thing with PR campaigns. You want to say it, and then you want to go say it again, and then you're going to say it again and again and again one more time, like to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, this again. Like you should feel so annoyed and frustrated, like you keep saying the same thing over and over again, because people are going to hear it differently in different situations. Some people, as you're in a meeting and you're talking about these things and giving examples of what you've done, they're going to hear it a little different if they're not stressed and if they're focused and they're paying attention versus they're not. I also think you want to say it more frequently in small ways versus once or twice strategically in big, huge ways. You want to think of it as like when you're going into the weekly status review update or a one-on-one with a manager or a skip level. You want to be saying it in small, little, frequent ways over and over versus there's certain people that I would work with that I could tell when their brain shifted to like, oh, it's going to be end of year review time, I need to start talking about these certain things. And they would like go all in on highlighting and showcasing their work. It's fine, but to me, it just feels a little like, oh, they're just trying to make sure that they get a good review versus the person that's consistent with the narrative and backing it up and highlighting the work they're doing. I don't need them to go and remind me at the end of the year all the cool things they've done because they're already top of mind. We've been talking about it all year. The other thing to keep in mind, a good PR campaign, it's very high level. They are not in the nitty gritty weeds with you. They have a very high level narrative and story. They're not telling you about the report they stayed up all night reformatting or the data that took them forever to pull. No. They're telling you the story from that report and from that data, right? So to do this, to have that higher level PR campaign and not get stuck in the weeds and not show behind the curtain, you want to tell people what you're doing, not how you're doing it. And you want the what to really focus on the impact and like why this is kind of a big deal. So for example, that communication tool I was working on, if I'm wanting to keep my narrative high level, I'm not digging into the messy weeds because there was a lot of it. There's a lot of drama, a lot of politics. Like it was messy. I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm not going to dig into that. I'm going to tell them how many people or how many teams we aligned and how now using this saves the company X number of hours. Right? That's what I'm telling them. I'm telling them what, not how. I'm not telling that we kept getting features added and requests and we missed our deadline by 6 months because of all the things that changed and we couldn't get teams aligned and we ran into some technical challenges. No, I'm not digging into the how we got there. I'm telling them what. I'm telling them we were able to add 15 additional key required features at launch that enabled us to launch this and be able to be used across the entire company and not require a small rollout like we had initially thought, right? I'm telling them what with a focus on impact, not how. I'm not pointing fingers at a team that dropped the ball and 24 hours before we were supposed to launch almost prevented us from launching. No, I'm telling them that we made a pivot 24 hours before launch and launched with 0 escalations. I'm telling them what, not how. And last, one thing that really helps me not feel like I'm being arrogant and that I think I'm better than other people is when I talk about this, when I speak up in these little frequent ways throughout ongoing meetings throughout the week, it helps me if I talk about it and say we versus me. Now, some of you might disagree with me on this tactic. That's okay. Do what works for you. And if you were in an interview setting, I would tell you the opposite. You need to be talking about you. You can talk about what the team did, but make sure you're talking about you. But in this setting, people know it requires a team, especially the more senior you are. You get further and further away from actually doing the work and you're leading the people to do the work. So when I'm in a status meeting or I'm in a one-on-one with my skip, they know it takes a team effort. Now, you can still highlight your part in it, but I like to highlight what the team or the group has done and maybe give a little slice into what I did specifically if it feels appropriate. Good leaders bring people along, and they recognize it takes an entire team to make it work. So, I'm going to go and talk about, we added 15 additional key features, and I led the team on roadmap implications so that everyone could stay aligned and launched, and people did their part, and it was great. Right? Or I'm going to talk about how we all pivoted 24 hours before the launch, and I made sure everyone agreed we were ready to launch before we went live. And this has helped the team really build trust and feel safe to raise their hand and identify when there's an issue that could potentially jeopardize a launch, and know we as a team work together. Right? Do you see what I'm talking about? We, us as a collective. I'm throwing in a little flavor there of what I did, not how I did it, but what I did. But I'm highlighting we as a team have done these things. I do think it's really important that you showcase your work, and we don't want to go out there and be boastful and arrogant and make it seem like we believe we're better than other people, because we're not. But there are some things you are better at than other people are at, and things other people are better at than you are. That's why we all need each other. That's why we need a team. So we're not here to put people down. We're not here to climb our way to the top and do unethical things that make us feel gross inside. But we're here to just constantly and frequent small ways talk about things that are working well. Have a purposeful PR campaign of the narrative you are trying to drive about the work you're doing, and talk about it all the time. All right, if you want some help with this, go get on my calendar, grab a coffee chat, and I can help you figure out what that narrative could be and some ways that we could talk about it that doesn't feel slimy and gross, because we don't need that. You're a good person. Let's not make you feel like a slimy and gross person, because you're not. All right. You're amazing. You got this. We'll talk soon.